Good morning to all of you, and a very, very warm welcome to the, I don't know how many people here, 50 people here at the Plaza Hotel in Brussels, and I am reliably informed more than 100 of you joining us online via the Spark Up platform. Now, before I go any further, a very important word to our online audience. Can I ask you to please go to the two small buttons at the bottom of your screen on the left-hand side. One of those buttons, it's the bottom one, should be used to switch on your camera, very important, and the top one enables you to raise your hand. So when I say, do you have a question for a speaker, that's what you need to press. Now, that's a little bit of the housekeeping out of the way, but back to my very, very warm welcome to you all. This is, of course, the European Mobility Week workshops with the absolute spot-on theme, and not least given the last 2 years of COVID, and I do say that knowing very well that it hasn't gone away, better connections. And as you all may know, Better Connections has a variety of very important subtopics: people, places, public transport, packages on demand, planning and policy. My name is Katrina Sickle, and I have the pleasure and the privilege of walking and talking us all through the next 3 hours of dynamic workshops. We've got 3 fabulous sessions for you, and in the afternoon I have the pleasure of presenting or hosting the award ceremony. Now, Eurocities has put together a great programme for you this morning with Polis, with ICLE, 3 dynamic sessions, first connecting people in places. I'll have a cosy fireside chat with these 4 lovely speakers who are representing different kinds of stakeholder groups with different needs, different ideas, different expectations for mobility. They're all brilliant, so I shall be chatting with them. We then have a session that's called Connecting with Youth, and I'll be in conversation with the European Commission, and then you have a real treat because you have a fantastic training that's delivered to you by 2 fabulous facilitators from ICLE. And just a reminder, for those of you who don't know, that's a global network of more than 2,500 local and regional governments committed to sustainable urban development. And then our last session is super useful. It's a really lovely, inspiring round-off because we're going to hear from 6 different speakers, some real insights into some very solid mobility actions, okay? So those are implemented by organisations and countries, well, cities actually, at local level. So hopefully they're things to inspire you that could be replicated elsewhere. After that comprehensive programme, which takes us until 1 o'clock, we have a 2-hour break, and then bam, we're into that fabulous award ceremony. Now, I'm nearly there. I'm nearly going to come and speak to you lovely people. You have to do that awful thing, don't you? You have to smile for ages before I introduce them. But I absolutely cannot complete this opening welcome message without mentioning the wider, and I think the best word is the shocking context of what is happening in Ukraine. Now, important to remember, please, that Ukrainian towns and cities really have been active over the past year in the European Mobility Week campaign to promote sustainable urban mobility, for which we absolutely recognise and thank them. Now, that obviously is not top of the agenda as we all meet today, but I think you would join me in saying we send a message of both solidarity and hope, not least that they will be able to be a part of this community before too long, a sign that their daily lives are absolutely not impacted in the way that they are now. Now, as I mentioned, this year's theme is Better Connections, so that means connecting with people at home. We're all here, we're all on site, there are people at home, we need to see them because they are absolutely at the heart of today's discussion. So I don't know if we've got anybody who's actually switched on their camera at home, because the idea is that we can see you, that you're with us. So I don't know, I'm waiting for a bit of a wave. Oh, hang on a minute, from the technicians. So there we go, I've got a thumbs up. Yes, I'm squinting with my very old eyes into the gloaming there. Yes, people are visibly present, so it's important that you raise your voices, you in the room and you online. Hashtag Mobility Week anytime and at various times during the event when prompted, either to pose a question or right now in a multiple choice quiz. Right, this is the thing. It's a Monday. I need to get you all with me, okay? I can see the faces looking at me like, who is that mad person trying to get us to be enthusiastic? Okay, so I'm going to get you to be active. We have got a quiz. All right, so those of you here, I think we have a QR code for you. Do you have a QR code that we can show these good people on the screen? Thank you. Oh, you've got the code. Oh, you've got the code in front of you. Could you make sure that you click on that code? Now, for those of you online, the questions in this quiz are going to miraculously pop up on your screen. Are we ready? Just give me a sign that those in the room are ready. You're all faffing with your smartphones. Are you okay? Oh, I'll get out of the way. Don't take a picture of my head, please. Are we good? Yeah? Give me a sign that you're ready. You are the most helpful person, can I just say that? You really are. Okay, so we're ready to go, because I need to cue in just a moment. Okay, ready at home? Well, it's easy for you at home, because it's just going to pop up on the screen. Right. We're going to see the action and the results live, okay? 8 questions, multiple choice. Get your brains in gear. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, we should have the first question there. Nothing's been, oh, look at, you're all going. Oh, we've got some, yeah. Are we getting some runners? Have we got any questions answered yet? No questions answered out of 8. Just, come on, you've got to know the first one. That would be insane. Is that the techno? Oh, look, you've got people at home looking cheerful or slightly confused. Do we have questions being answered? Good technicians? Yeah, we do? Perfect. Oh, there's somebody who wants to try and get ahead. I don't know how many have been answered. You have to give me a steer. I don't know what question we're on. And I hope you don't get my name wrong either. That would be really depressing in one of the questions. Are they doing well? I have no indication, Simon. Are they doing well? People look as though they're concentrating online. Do we have a winner? No? Not yet. Oh my goodness me, you're slow. I thought you'd be whipping through these. Come on, instinct, come on. Who's finished? Hands up in the room. You, the best person. Oh my God. Who else is finished? Oh, you, because you're doing your exams on the front row, aren't you? I see this. Anyone else who's finished? You finished? Mm-hmm. Are you pleased with what you put in? Some yes, some was just took a punt, right? Yeah, okay. I'm just waiting for a steer. Don't worry, good people. I'm just eating into your conversation time with how slow everybody is, but no stress. Okay. Yeah, there's some real debates here about what to pick. Fly, be free, instinct. People being very protective. You're done? You're done and dusted? Anyone else? Who else is done? That was a large wave. You don't count though, you're part of this. Icle, no, you're cheat. You can't. Okay, we can wrap it up. Shall we move on? We can move on. I'm being told very reliably by the production manager that we can actually move on now. Okay, well, very importantly, we're going to move straight into a conversation. So hold that thought. We might come back to the results. I am now going to have a conversation about mobility at large, but all of those fabulous subtopics that I mentioned with 4 wonderful speakers. So I'm going to come into this living room. And let me remind you all, in case you didn't grasp it, shh, ladies and gentlemen, everybody who is here, you may raise a hand, okay, with a question. At some point, I will come to you, but you need to keep it short. This is not paragraphs, it's a 1-sentence question. To all of you lovely people online, it's the exact same principle. use your digital hand if you have a question, and we will see you beamed into the Plaza Hotel to ask it. Keep it short. Right, who do we have to talk about connecting people and places? We have Katie Bulanowski. I didn't do that well, did I?
It's okay.
You tell me your name.
Katie Bulanowski.
Thank you very much, Bulanowski, and I even wrote it phonetically, Katie. And Katie is project officer at the European Passengers Federation. You've been there how long?
Just about a year.
About a year, so you're quite a newbie. Okay, we've got Nadia Hadad, who is a member of the Executive Committee of the European Disability Forum. Also joining us is Ruben Sansom, who is Clean Mobility Coordinator at Generation Climate Europe. You're also an Erasmus student, a master's Erasmus student in Prague, The Hague,
and Barcelona.
Currently Barcelona. Yeah. He is just a globe trotter. And here we have Marianne Weinreich. And Marianne is market manager for smart mobility at Ramboll, which is a global engineering, architecture and consultancy company. But she's also the lead author, and it's important I let you know this, because for this discussion, the lead author of a study on gender and urban mobility, and also chairs the Cycling Embassy of Denmark. So, connecting people and places. By this, we mean, well, I think for me it means mobility for all people with all their different needs and expectations. What does it mean for you? How do you understand our conversation?
Exactly what you said. It means including different types of people, because at the end of the day, every person is different. Every person travels for a different purpose, and mobility should be inclusive of their needs, no matter where you live, your age, your gender. All of those different factors can come into play, so they should be thought about.
Okay. Would you broadly agree with that definition? Anybody want to add what we need to think about? By the way, I'm just throwing in something I didn't say I would throw in. Anything else you want to be clear about for our discussion? Sound like a good explanation?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah? Okay, so let me come to you again, Katie. Just tell us 3 words about who you are, 3 sentences, and what is that burning, kind of most important issue for you when we talk about mobility and we talk about people and places and access for all? What kind of really gets you going?
Okay, so to recap, my name is Katie Bulanowski. I'm a project officer at the European Passengers Federation, which is a nonprofit organization representing the passengers. So we have different members throughout Europe, all also representing passengers on different modes of transport. So really important to us is really thinking about the entire journey that a person takes. So whether you're traveling for work, whether you're traveling to a concert, to a restaurant, whatever it may be, you're leaving your house, you're going to a location, and that entire journey should be accessible, it should be inclusive, should be getting you where you need to go. So really important for us is, again, as I mentioned, to take into account different types of users, because very often we see that it's public transportation can be geared towards one type of user, but there are many different types of people in the world. So that's quite important for us.
And let me just, because I think when I was reading up and having a bit of a chat to you, do you see this journey as a means to get somewhere, or do you see it as an experience and an end in itself?
Oh, for me, it can be both.
Can be both.
Really, yep.
Okay. Ruben, very rare to be outnumbered on a gender front for me as a moderator. I am predominantly moderating manuals. That is most of my life at the moment. So, Ruben, it's delightful to have you, globetrotter. You're going to be speaking mostly from the youth perspective. Say a couple of sentences about yourself and what really gets you fired up. What's the main opening gambit that you would like to provide to our lovely audience?
Yeah, so like you pointed out, I'm Clean Mobility Coordinator for Generation Climate Europe. And at Generation Climate Europe, we unite several large youth organizations throughout Europe, such as the Erasmus Student Network and AGEA.
You can
and
speak more slowly.
More slowly.
Yeah.
Sorry. And together,
right.
together we represent around 20 million young Europeans. And basically what we try to do on the mobility front is to enable young Europeans to travel sustainably. Because most young Europeans, I think a large percentage of that 20 million are very motivated to travel in a sustainable manner. But sometimes there are some barriers to being able to do so. And since we're talking about cities today and it's an award ceremony, I also want to give a shout out before we start looking into some of the problems. I want to actually give a shout out to cities for some of the good work that has been done, because often I work on more long distance travel, and there we see a huge financial difference between travel by plane and by train. So traveling sustainably is very difficult from a financial perspective for young Europeans. In cities, generally, this is better because prices for sustainable motor transport are lower. But then there are still some barriers which need to be overcome.
So give an example, be concrete,
yeah.
give one example of a barrier.
Yeah, so a key example, for example, is that when you want to use city bikes, often you need to put in a fairly substantial financial deposit beforehand for a credit card. And for me personally, like as a student, I don't actually have a credit card, so this is difficult for me to do. And in Barcelona, for example, the city bikes, you require a national registration number, which is for exchange students is also difficult to have. So sometimes there's these hurdles, either financial or administrative, which we feel like cities can work towards overcoming to make sustainable mobility even more accessible for young Europeans.
Thank you. And I said to you when I spoke to you that administrative side was something I hadn't really thought about when you talk infrastructure, people. So I understood from speaking to you before, you were all sort of agreeing that there isn't enough people at the heart. It's very much about vehicles, very much about networks. I hadn't even thought of that sort of perspective, particularly in travel, of the administrative side of things, not least the financial. Hold that thought for a moment. Don't forget, if you have a question, it's got to be a sentence long or half a sentence, and I will come to them, but we've got lots of things to pack into this opening session. Nadia, over to you. So a couple of sentences about who you are and what's your burning issue or point that you want to lay out at the start of our discussion.
Okay, thank you. So my name is Nadia Hadad. I'm a member of the executive of the European Disability Forum. We are an umbrella organization with more than 100 members, defending the rights of more than 100 million European citizens with a disability. We are around 15% of the population, and a lot of us are not visible. Why? Because we still cannot enjoy that freedom of movement to go from one place to another, due to that legislation is different from one country to another. We still don't have the right to show up and get on. You still need to make reservation many hours before you want to take the train. It should be one country 24 hours before, another countries 48 hours before. So nothing can be spontaneously. Yeah. So we are doing a lot of lobby work in order to be able to live included in the community as equal level as all the other citizens.
And just to give an example, because funnily enough, when I said we're all gathered this morning, also it was you came, you said, well, Kat, I've got this lift coming, which indeed bears out what you were saying. There needs to be a lot of organisation that isn't taken into account at all. You did say, I think, that you do see some progress, but it's quite fragmented across the EU. Do you genuinely feel stuff is happening?
Well, there are some initiatives, but they are mostly pilot projects. They started up, and it makes it a little bit inclusive, more accessible, also more affordable, because we're obliged most of the time to take first-class tickets. And then we need to pay also for our assistance. So there are some new facilities. There is a European disability card in the making of that would help us. Okay. For the moment, it's still on leisure and culture. But we hope that with it we are able also to reclaim our social benefits to travel from one country to another.
And I think just to pick up, and then I will come to you, Marianne, so you all get a chance to lay out your stall. Something very interesting, you made 2 points, was one, listen, Kat, if you don't mainstream people with disabilities at the outset, it actually costs more to retrofit things, so that's important. But you also made the point that accessibility also for people with disabilities is accessibility for all. So did you want to expand just briefly on that?
Yeah, definitely. If you made something accessible, it will be a benefit for everybody. All people to reduce mobility, but also the comfort for most of passenger will be guaranteed. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Marianne, you're coming with a very interesting angle here. A lot of your research focused. So tell us a couple of sentences about who you are and what's that issue that, you know, if you're in a pub, you're going to be, Kat, this is what's keeping me awake at night.
Yes, as you said, I am lead author on a report on gender and mobility, and that is basically, it all started with me reading Carolina Criado Perez's book, Invisible Women. It made me super angry, so I needed to do something, and then luckily Ramboll said yes, because transport is a male-dominated sector. As you said, I've been the one woman on a lot of all-male panels. We have an unconscious bias in the sector towards male travel patterns, and we all, actually, women are 50% of the population, but we are not represented, and the needs that women have are not being planned for. Unconsciously, of course, but we need to put focus on it to actually make that change.
So give example. I mean, I'm sure many of you will think, but actually some you don't. Give me an example of something when you say there are there shouldn't be specificities, but you say women have particular needs. What would you cite as an example?
Too importantly, women do 75% of the unpaid care work in the world. That means that women, to a much greater extent than men, travel with accompany children, accompany elderly, do the shopping, have a travel pattern called trip chaining compared to men. So that we need really to take into account when planning transport and mobility services and solutions. And then there is the topic of feeling secure when traveling, especially at night, walking and public transport. And we've seen that now. There's been a spotlight on it because there's been some tragic events, but it is something every women feel, every face when traveling. We have our strategies. We think it's just us, but it's actually very general what we're doing.
Okay. Just before we have a little sort of sparkling interlude, I'm coming back to you, because when you're the first speaker, then you listen to everybody else. Anything that you heard there that you might want to jump on and go, yeah, Kat, that resonated, or you want to make a comment on anything that you heard from our other three speakers?
Actually, all of it resonates. At the European Passengers Federation, we're involved in many different projects, talking about many different types of groups of people. So whether that's youth, whether that's elderly populations, whether that's people with disabilities, women. A lot of our research has also shown the same thing. Women are generally making chain trips more often. They want to feel safe. That's quite important for them. They make different choices depending on the time of day that they're traveling. But youth as well. We've done some projects around youth. So really all of it resonates with me. Maybe that's not the answer you
No, that's perfectly. That's absolutely the answer, because for me, when you unpack it, you know, one doesn't think about all the, you know it, but then when you come into those concrete realizations of different needs, it becomes very specific. So no, absolutely, that was absolutely the answer that I would have expected. Please kindly hold that thought. There are some other issues that we'd like to come to, not least around policy and planning, perhaps this rise in e-commerce. So we wanted to look at this whole issue of packages on demand and sort of the different needs and expectations there. But hold that thought, because part of the reason I ask people to switch on their cameras online is to get this feeling that we're all together. But we have kind of been shut inside, not even kind of been, we have been shut inside. So we want to sort of break out of these walls today, and I would like to get a volunteer to go onto the local streets of Brussels as a roving reporter with a cameraman and see if you can get one or two sound bites without terrorizing anybody, passers-by, and what their mobility habits are, and what they might be open to changing, what they don't know about. Just, you know, sniff out, take the temperature of Brussels residents on the local streets. Now, do we have a volunteer? And suddenly this lovely lady in row 2 is not going to be as lovely, are you? Look, you have a hurt arm. Is that correct? Who's a volunteer? You? Come. Oh, you have a microphone. That's very helpful. Come.
Hello,
You
everyone.
couldn't please give a warm round of applause to our volunteer.
Thank you.
So, What is your name and are you ready?
Yes, definitely ready. I'm Carla,
Yes.
the Portuguese National Coordinator of the European Mobility Week.
Okay.
And I'm ready.
And what's going to be that first question you ask?
I would like to know if they know anything about the European Mobility Week, especially here in Brussels.
Yes, very good, very good. And how will you bring them warmly into the conversation and not have them run down the street in fear? Will it be your huge smile, Carla?
I will be very kind to them.
You will be very kind. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. We are going to check in with Carla, and you've got a lovely cameraman going with you. We're going to check in with Carla in about 15 minutes, or I'm going to get a sign when you have managed to inveigle, pull somebody in, and have them answer a question. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well done. Good luck.
Bye-bye.
I think we should. You see, you just thought it was just some standard event, didn't you? See all of this interactive stuff? It's fabulous, isn't it? Okay, so first of all, let me just check. Let me just check in with you good people. Thus far, does anybody have a question for our delightful panelists? Don't be shy. And don't kind of end this entire discussion and then go, damn it, I wish I'd asked. Let me just get a little signal and see if there's anybody online who wants to switch on their camera and their mic. Nobody? No? Okay, fine. Oh, a bit late in the day, but I'll take it. Hang on, we need to get a microphone to you. So do we have a hostess with the mostest who could give this gentleman? It is you. Good morning. Oh, hello. You have a mic. Oh, would you like me to do it? Are you happy? There. This gentleman here in the red lanyard. You were running, Juan, like a ninja there. I was very impressed. That was a beautiful ninja run. Who are you?
Hello.
And what's your question?
Oh, my name's Sean Ford. I'm the UK National Coordinator. My question is for Ruben.
Yes.
About the youth of today. I have a daughter who is 16 years old and is venturing out and trying to use travel sustainably. I suppose the question is she's very much a case of whatever works on the day. So if she can get a lift or an Uber or the train, and I'm trying to think, how can we sort of make younger people think more sustainably rather than perhaps...
What, because planning at the last minute means you don't,
Yes.
you're not putting the sustainability element first, you're kind of seeing what's there and going with it.
It's the social scene rather than the sustainability.
Nice question, good question. Right, he has broken the ice, and he's from the UK. Although I am too, so it's okay. Anybody else before? Come on, he's broken the ice, come on. No? Everyone is silent. Okay, good question. What would you say to that? How do you make sure that young people put sustainability first and don't sort of go, oh, what's there and I'll take that on the day?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Thank you very much. Well, what I would say is that in a way, like sometimes I feel like the kind of emphasis on being sustainable is kind of placed a little bit unfairly on just young Europeans. I feel we are generally, as a generation, very motivated to be sustainable. But as you say, like there need to be sustainable options available. Like we need to have these, they need to be options which are accessible to us. And one of the key points I'd say with regards to cities is there's kind of this trade-off in a way between flexibility and reliability. Like we have some modes of transport, like the new bikes, the scooters, which are very flexible, and that's great for kind of one-off trips. But for daily travel, for like the more reliable mode of transport, like the sustainable option is the public transport, right? Like the metros, the buses. So I still feel like even though we have like especially for younger Europeans, there's often this focus like, oh, you like these flexible options, these modern options, which I think to a certain extent is very true. But on the other hand, it's also important to make sure that that's combined with the reliable public transport solutions. Because if you look at like within cities, what used to be like the main mode of transport and still is for some of the more older generations, like traveling by motorbike or by car, the thing is that those vehicles, they combine both, right? They're flexible because you can go wherever you like. It's your own vehicle, and they're reliable because it's always there. And so I feel like in cities it's very important that we combine both these things in the sustainable solution.
As in a multimodal kind
Yes, so
combination
we need
to enable the
a
planning.
really good combination between the reliable public transport systems
Okay.
and then the more flexible modes.
Okay.
And if those things work well together, then I feel that young Europeans will
Okay.
choose to use those sustainable modes of transport.
Okay, we're going to come back a little bit, and I'm going to come to you both in a moment. I know you wanted to respond here, and Nadia, if you, we will come back to e-scooters and some of those sort of additional elements that have certainly, risen in terms of on the increase since the pandemic and even before, and also from an environmental perspective. Out of interest, when you say older, what do you consider old?
Well, I was thinking, like, for me, this is like the first in-person event I've been to, because, like, for me, like, before COVID, sustainable mobility was like playing with my toy trains and stuff, like I'm that young. So yeah, for me, older generations, that's like...
Go on, Bits, put a number on it.
So over 25.
Oh, Jesus Christ on a bike, that's so depressing, isn't it? I am past it. Marianne, and then you wanted to come in on this question.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even though, given that sentiment, I'm ancient, turning 50 this year, I would like to give a perspective just in general that in order to travel sustainably, young as well as adults and old people like me, we need that it's accessible, it's affordable, and it's there, that it's a choice that we can make. Yes, and it's safe. That was my next question, because we have to design for sustainable modes. I'm Danish. We bike a lot. People say, oh, you were born on a bicycle. No, we were not born on a bicycle. We don't have a special DNA, but our cities are designed for cycling, and that's why we're cycling. So, and we need that to be what we see when we enter the streets. If we see cars, that's what we are prompted that we want to do. It's a nudge. So if we're planning for cars, that's what young people as well as other people will travel by.
Okay, thank you. And actually, you did make an important point, and then I will come to you, and then to you, Nadia. You did make an important point, I think, before I read that, okay, electrification vehicles, but actually, that's still keeping the planning for the cars, and we need to think more widely than that. You wanted to come in on our question there.
Yes, so I just wanted to piggyback off of what was said by both people. Last year, we were involved in a project involving youth in their schools in sustainable urban mobility planning. And that was a really, really interesting project for us because it was actually integrated in their coursework to think about sustainable mobility. And so really simple, the idea was to talk to students in their classes, different ages, so elementary school, but also high school students. They looked at a map, they explored the area around their school, they talked about how they generally get to school, and the results were really that just the infrastructure wasn't up to par for them to safely walk or bike to school. So even something like that, I think, is really important as well. Because children often rely on their parents for mobility. They don't have a license, they maybe don't have a bus stop close by, so sometimes walking or biking is the only option, and it may not be safe for them. So
I'm only stopping you, and I'm coming to you next because I have a cue, because I think otherwise we will lose the passerby. Is that correct? I think bless you, you've been trying to flag my attention for the last 5 hours. Hold that thought, all of you. Do we? Oh,
Yes.
my goodness me.
Yes.
I can't see you on the return screen, so I'm just going to sort of move. Go on, Carla.
Okay. So, very kindly, we have here Sophie. She's from Sweden, Stockholm, but she's living here and working here. And very kindly, she told me that she can answer a few questions. And she's already delayed for her meeting, so we must be quickly. Hello, Sophie. Good morning.
Good morning.
To everyone. Sophie, I would like to ask you if you know anything about the European Mobility Week, European campaign about sustainable mobility. Did you ever heard about it?
Well, I've heard about the sustainability and, of course, the work with mobility. But the week, no, I wasn't aware of that it was this week.
Okay, every year from 16th to 22nd of September, we have this campaign, and a lot of European countries participate. Also, Brussels have been participating last year, so you never have been in one of those campaigns here in Brussels, or maybe on Stockholm.
Not in Brussels. I've been in Stockholm. There is a digital day, but that's not the same thing. But I haven't participated in this now.
Okay, so we'll be very attention this year, okay? 16th to 22nd of September. And just one more question, please. How do you use the transport modes here on Brussels? How do you commute to work or to visit family? How do you do it?
I take the train.
And it's okay? You like to use the transport modes, the public ones?
It's very easy to commute here, so it's no problem.
Okay, great. Have a nice day and enjoy your meeting. And bye-bye. And Sophie, thank you very much. Thank you to all.
Ooh,
Hello, Katrina.
That was absolutely better than the BBC, quite frankly. So thank you so much to Carla. She's brilliant. So I'm just going to pick up, you were talking about how fascinating it was to go in and talk to the kids and the importance, and I think you're very right, of anchoring all that at a much younger age. Also, not least because they do have an influence on their parents. I can say this as somebody with a 12-year-old daughter. So those are the kinds of conversations. Nadia, I want to come to you, A, just to give you an opportunity to pick up on anything you've heard, and B, I want to ask you a question about e-scooters, because the one thing that really annoys me is the fact that people leave them lying around. Not just because it gets in your way, it gets in my way too, and many other people's. So first of all, anything you wanted to come back on that you heard or a comment to make?
I just wanted to reflect on sustainability. For us, it's very important, in fact, that making public transport accessible and affordable would help us not to use special vans, special transport.
Yeah.
So it would reduce and make it really easier. But it's also about communication. You know, a lot of communication about all those new initiatives are not really accessible. You need to use a lot of application. You need, and it's not an easy to read for people with intellectual disability.
Right.
It's not easy to use with people who use screen readers. It's not easy to understand for people in general, and also sometimes it's too small to use it for people with physical disabilities. So we really forgot about the right communication to make it also accessible, and also the way of doing the payments.
Yeah. And also, I mean, I think the important point, and again, when we use that, you know, people with disabilities, it's very different. So needs are very different. For some people, it's to hear. For some people, it's to see. For some people, it's pictograms and more signage. For you, it's accessibility and ramps, and also, as you importantly say, to bring down costs. Let me just come back on this, because I don't want to have this conversation in the time we have left without this kind of e-scooters, and feel free to pitch in. But what do you think about this from the sustainability point of view, from the city streets point of view, from a mode of transport point of view?
Well, yeah, those scooters facilitate a lot, and especially the young people who are using them. But maybe we still miss to sensibilize them that other people will use the sidewalks. So to encourage them to put them not in the way of people, not beside the walls, because the walls are used by blind people to get directive. So there must be some parking places, and hoping, push them somehow to respect those spots and to park them over there. That would already really help.
Yeah, go on.
If I can pitch,
Yeah.
I think that would also, like, if we find a good way about, going about the parking of these scooters, that will also increase their sustainability, because I think a problem with them now is that their lifespan is not actually that long, because they get, moved around, kind of thrown about in a, not the best manner, and that blocks the sidewalks, and it also damages the scooters, reducing their sustainability. So I think here, keeping the sidewalks accessible and increasing sustainability are mutually reinforcing.
Which brings me, and yes, I was going to come to you, Marianne, because all of this is also about planning and policy. and where does the responsibility lie? So we've sort of, for me, I'm like this grumpy old woman. I literally put them upright and get them out the way. It annoys me. I love to use them with my daughter, but it annoys me. So where does the responsibility lie between me as a user and, you know, the city level and even more?
But I think it's threefold. There are the operators. They are private companies that are, you know, using public space for their business. And then there are the cities that are making that public space available. So I think the operators as well as the cities, they can make demands on the operators and have rules and regulations for how to operate in public space. And then the operators can also nudge and prompt us users because it's digital, and they have a lot of tools to actually make sure that we park them right. It can be economic incentive that we keep paying until we park at the right place. There can be geofencing. There are all these technical solutions that can help us all actually behave better, because they do offer another type of mobility that is useful for some of the users. So, but we need to figure out how to
integrate them into the spaces. Let me just check in. Anybody lost their shyness and want to ask another question? Even you are allowed to if you have another one, just to say. Or anybody online? I don't want to be missing anybody. No, I'm just at last. There we go. Oh, I wanted to see my ninja running across the front row at low level. Never mind. Go ahead. Who are you,
Thank
please?
you. My name is Zana Sokoli. I come from Kosovo. We are one of the finalists for the Sampo Award. I had a question actually related to the e-scooters, because yesterday I arrived in Brussels and I see that you quite like it here. I mean, to use it. But I also faced a situation that a guy like running an e-scooter and another one driving. For me, the situation was risky, how they were crossing each other. So I wanted to ask about safety.
Okay.
How safe are our European streets actually to use these e-scooters?
And do you mind, because it's a good point, and it's all about people, and it's all about planning and policy. Can we expand that to talk about safety at large? Let's just sort of touch on that in the time that we have left, and a couple of other points. Who would like to come in on this issue of safety, whether it's between cars and... You want to start? Yes, Marianne.
I can start. I don't want to talk specifically about safety for e-scooters, how safe that is, but it does come down to whether or not we plan, because we should have safety in design of our streets, and that means for walking, for cycling, for e-scooters. And right now there are different rules in different cities where, for instance, e-scooters are supposed to be. In some cities it's on where pedestrians are, and for instance in Denmark it's on the bike lanes. And difference in speed causes conflict. That's the general thing. So we need to figure out how, if we put everything new into the bike lanes, and there are also difference in speed, we also have e-bikes now, or in the future we start designing for the speed, because luckily we are also seeing now that cities across Europe are slowing down the speed, like here in Brussels, the 30-kilometer zone. Because speed is a huge factor when it comes to traffic safety for cars. So it is about design, and it's about speed, and it's about where we put the different users.
Yes, Ruben.
Yeah, if I can pitch in on that, what I'd add is that, of course, in a lot of cities, originally they've been designed for cars, right? And that's something we're trying to overcome now. Now we're increasing more different modes of mobility. And I think what's really crucial is that in the planning stage, that people are involved who use these forms of mobility. So that the planning of like where the cycle lanes and where the scooter lanes are, there's actually people involved there who use the bikes and who use the scooters.
Okay, and be specific. Yeah. So that's what
Right,
so
yeah.
How do you get them involved? What should cities do? What should how do you get them involved?
The thing is, there's so many initiatives there already. So, for example, I live in Barcelona, And the bike lanes, they're kind of a nice effort, but they're all over the place. Like sometimes on the right of the road, sometimes on the left, sometimes in the middle. And there's multiple organizations, mainly led by young Europeans who work on bikes and who know very well, they use bikes everywhere, they know how they work. And these are people now, they're primarily campaigning, but they really want to be involved in the planning process, in the policy making process. So basically what I'm saying is, like, when you're planning these things, get them in the room
At
and
the front
to
end.
talk about, yeah.
So actually, I'll come in just a moment. I'll just come first to you, Katie, because I think you wanted to.
Yeah, just to go off of that, I would also say it's important to involve not only the end users, but also people who are not using them. So we know for a fact people have broken legs tripping over an e-scooter. So pedestrians on the sidewalk should also be involved in these types of conversations. It's not just the person riding the scooter, it's really the people walking around the city who should be involved. And what I'd also like to say, for me as well, it's important, this co-creation process, involving people from the start, rather than just dropping a new form of mobility into a city and seeing how it works.
But out of interest, and I'll come to you, Nadia, and then I will come to you, Marianne, out of interest, those are tricky things, aren't they? So one thing is getting all of the relevant stakeholders, not least a very, very good point, not just the users, but those who are impacted by the use. But managing those conversations, there will always be, for want of a better word, compromises or trade-offs, will there not? I mean, is that part of what you experience in your day job? How does one manage pissing people off, disappointing them? How does one?
Well, definitely, because as we mentioned, there are different types of groups of people, but within those groups, every person is an individual with different needs, which are all complex. So indeed, you do have to sort of find a middle ground, and okay, some people will not be happy at the end of the day, but you can at least try your best to ensure that most needs are met. A basic need is safety. People should be safe when they're walking around a city, when they're taking public transport, when they're taking an e-scooter. So I think that's maybe even
a kind of a
number one.
commonality.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Nadia, and then Marianne. Yes.
Just to complete, compromising is sometimes very difficult, because if you don't respect the rights and the safety of other stakeholders, then compromising is not possible. For example, I don't hear those scooters. They are without noise. And they came behind me, and they just turned in front of me. I cannot stop right away. So it's really dangerous. So for us, we call ourselves most of the time that we are disabled people, because the environment is not accessible to us, so it's a grave or disability. But we claim to have meaningful participation. It's not only consulting different stakeholders, it's really taking them into the process from the beginning, from the moment when there is a brainstorm session about how we will use or develop something, until the implementation of it, until the evaluation of it, and it should be continued.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. So not tokenism. I mean, you talked of tokenism yourself, didn't you? Saying, Kat, we tend to get brought in, but I think you said, and a short one, because I promised to come to Marianne, I think you said, Kat, also, we are the users of the future, so it's kind of nonsense not to bring us in to the conversation and keep us throughout the process.
Yeah, and mainly something to avoid is to only include us when the youth is in the name. Like if we're looking at a youth ticket, for example, then the youth is usually included a lot. But like we talked about, like the safety of cycling lanes, for example, that's something which really affects the way that the mobility, the road users of tomorrow are going to use the road. So get us involved in those conversations more broadly as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Marianne, you wanted to come in, I think, a little bit back on,
But it is on cycling safety, because I also represent the Cycling Embassy of Denmark. And it's not that we don't know what is safe cycling infrastructure. There is lots of knowledge about that. I think the the bigger issue is that cities need to decide to prioritize what is safe cycling infrastructure. And that means redistributing space and giving space and creating segregated cycling infrastructure. And it's also a political choice. And then when it comes to talking about different users, when it comes to cycling, Denmark and the Netherlands are the only countries where we have a 50-50% of men and women cycling, even a little bit more women than men. And that is because of the safe cycling infrastructure. Because women are, research say, more averse to risk than men in life. And when it comes to cycling, women have a higher demand for safe cycling infrastructure than men. So we need to plan also and include women, and not just, sorry to say, Ruben, young men who are, more not as averse to risk as women. So we need to make sure that we know and understand the users. And here's where data and knowledge comes in and talking.
Yeah, thank you. Very good. And so glad that you did bring in this point about data. I'm sure data is something that's at the heart of a lot of the work you do, I would imagine, because you work with so many different groups. I'm just doing a check on the clock. We only have a couple of minutes. I have a last sort of action point question for you from the point of what I'm asking you for cities, because we are talking about European Mobility Week. I'm checking that there's no more questions. And please don't, somebody always comes at the last minute, opens a Pandora's box. Yes, there is a question. Look at that. I've got 25 people flagging me down. There's a question. Oh, there we are. Okay.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Who are you, please?
Hi, I'm Laura Bertou. I'm the national coordinator for Flanders, so not really national, actually. So my question is a follow-up on the safety issue, but I feel like we mostly talked about safety from other vehicles now. When I think of a need to feel safe as a woman in sustainable options, it's also about safety from other people. So what do we need to do for that aspect of safety?
Okay, keep it lovely and concise. Let me start with you, Marianne, because it's very much your area, but very happy to hear from you too, because I think that must be a strong focus of your work. But please.
Yes, in the report we talk about traffic safety and feeling secure, and I think that's what you were talking about. And it is a fact that women have these security issues and have all these strategies when traveling, especially at night, walking, using public transport. And what we can do is actually, in the design of different solutions, not have that as some add-on when we design and cater for women's special needs, that we actually think about how to feel safe and secure when we design, from if it's a solution or if it's public transport. Or
so what would you propose?
Yeah, it can be everything from lighting to maybe a way to communicate with people, having actual people around. There are so many different things that you need, but you need to be aware of it. You need to include it from the beginning. And it is a fact that both too little people and too many people can make you feel insecure, and we need to know more, and we need more data, and we need to work with this more focused and strategically, instead of just telling women to text when they're home or be careful, because that doesn't fix the root of the problem.
Sure. Anything you want to add on that? Just come to you, Katie. Yes.
Yeah, very quickly, for me as a woman, I also, of course, experience issues when I'm traveling alone, especially at night. And sometimes it's really just a matter of not seeing another person who can help me.
Yes.
You go on a train. Where's the conductor? Where is the person, the security person? Where is the person in the train station? Very often, I must say, train stations seem a bit scary at night sometimes, no matter what city you're in. There are all kinds of people there. So I think also lighting, I've read about some really nice initiatives where some groups of women, I think in the UK it was, they were trying to improve these sorts of public spaces so that it was more comfortable for women to travel alone. So whether that was removing a wall, whether that was planting plants that were lowered to the ground rather than big hedges, so you can
Yeah,
really see and be aware of your surroundings. So there are some nice initiatives in that respect.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Really nice example there. What I'm just going to do, in the interest of time, which I need to respect, so anything else that you might have, I'm going to ask you that anyone has a follow-up question or anyone online, absolutely put it in the chat and we can pass it to these good people afterwards. I just want to, before I'm asking for this last kind of action point that I would like you to share. Just this package is on demand, because we didn't look at this, and you had some very valuable points to make, Nadia, from the perspective of people with disabilities. Obviously, we all know this mega rise in e-commerce, which in itself needs managing from a traffic congestion point of view, not least a sustainability point of view. Yes, it's convenient, but it has all sorts of issues. But what did the point you wanted to make where there isn't some thought for people with disabilities?
Well, most of the time we are obliged when the website is accessible and when we can use it correctly. We order then a lot of, for example, clothes in different size to be sure that one of them will fit. But once that delivery service come up, you cannot mention anywhere that when they ring, that they need to wait until somebody, my assistant, goes down, or somebody else, or myself. I take time, I'm slow. By the time that I pick up and I speak with them, they already left. So they leave the parcel in front of your door, or they take it with them. So it makes it for us twice complicated.
Yeah.
And also, speaking on sustainability, it's not the right way to handle.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So much to think about, and I'm aware that we've sort of scratched the surface. We've given you stuff to go away with. We wanted to try and sort of put a lot of different points out there. For me, all of it, I mean, even before, as you said, you know, we have to be really careful with compromises and tokenism, and that's something we need to be careful. For me, even getting everybody into the conversation, everybody with their different needs, is about caring. It's about caring. It's about how much you think. I mean, and then we have the dialogue. But let me ask you, because we are linking this, of course, to this fabulous campaign in September that our lovely roving reporter was encouraging our passerby, saying, get involved. What change, what initiative, what would you like to see in your city during European Mobility Week in September? What should the city focus on? One sentence, starting with you, Marianne.
Bridging the data gender gap. Simply starting to collect data and understand the gender differences in transport and mobility, and then, you know, make policies and solutions and design based on that knowledge.
So think and get the data and act based on the evidence.
Yes, because you said caring is important, but caring isn't enough. You need to act, and you need to act based on data. And
but I saw caring as a precursor.
Yeah.
Unless you kind of think about it, you don't even act. But absolutely, acting, it's all very well raising awareness, but what are you going to do?
And we do have a transport sector with there's only 22% women in this sector in general.
Right.
So we do have this unconscious bias in the system, and we cannot, as individuals, break that bias. We need systems, and we need data, and we need knowledge to, in common, break those biases.
Thank you. Nadia, last word. What do you want to see happen? Something beautifully concise in that campaign in September. What should cities do?
I would like that cities think about integral accessibility from door to door, and all what's needed to make every person, regardless the support need, to be able to move into the community.
Thank you very much. Ruben?
Yeah, well,
where will you be in September? Sorry, somewhere else. I don't know. Guadeloupe?
The truth is I don't know at the moment.
Okay.
But yeah. What I would say is if we're moving beyond cars in cities, what is crucial in Mobility Week is that we involve people who no longer see cities through the eyes of cars, right? And I know everyone will claim not to do that anymore, but the reality is, like, the generation who's now generally doing the planning and the policy making, they grew up in a world which was designed for cars. So yeah, involve the generation who's moved beyond that. As much as, I believe in your good intentions. Get our vision in. We see the world with slightly different eyes.
He believes in the good intentions of people over the age of 20, is what he's trying to say. And we didn't even talk about where connected and automated driving fits into all this, but that's a whole other conversation. Last word to you. What do you want, or what do you want to put in place? What do you want cities to be doing?
Well, I agree, of course, with everything that has been said. Maybe to take a different approach, I would also like cities to involve people more. I've said that already, but I think not only in the Mobility Week, but also beyond that. A lot of times people don't know how they can participate, how they can give feedback. They'll receive a newsletter in their mailbox saying what's been done, but they don't know how they can contribute themselves. So I'd like to take it just a step further than limiting ourselves to 1 week and really trying to extend it.
Extend the participation.
Yep.
Extend the reaching out. Spend and don't make it token, and keep it throughout the entire process, as you said. Thank you so very much. I think we are a little bit over, but can I still give a 10-minute break? Because I think we will make it work in the last session. We will make up the time to work. So I'd like to give people a break. So first of all, warm thanks. I said to you, and I wasn't kidding, that I could have dinner with you for hours and talk about all of this, and I had to sort of crack the whip and ask you to be concise, but you've been brilliant. Thank you so much, an absolute pleasure. Could you please give a very warm welcome to our speakers? Thank you. Thank you very much for your questions. Thank you to those of you at home for staying with us. We are going to take a 10-minute break until 11:10. We're going to dive straight into our second workshop, Connecting with Youth. As I said, it's going to open with me and a fireside chat with the European Commission, and then some brilliant training that you're going to have, which is wonderful. So do stay for that. You absolutely don't want to miss it. And that training is also for everybody online. So air your brains, tweet, #Mobility Week. See you very, very shortly. Thank you. Thank you at home.